Hey everybody! I have some great stories for you today, so sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Almost forgot. I checked this post on my break at work, and I wasn't expecting so many responses in such a short time. I really appreciate all your opinions and suggestions on what to do. I won't change my decision, but I'll try to somehow help my mum. I'll try to convince her to go to therapy first, and maybe we'll talk it out. I don't know if I'll be able to cut them from my life. They're still my family, but if nothing changes, I'll keep it at the minimum. To add yes, I now know there's a mistake in the title. It should be live, not lice. I don't know how to change it, and thank you for forgiving my bad English. But at least I found out what lice means. I, a 29-year-old female, got married to my husband, a 29-year-old male, last month. I have two older sisters, 33 and 35, and a younger brother, 24, who has autism. I don't have a good relationship with my mum, and my brother became my whole life. I saw how she was spoiling him at the cost of me and my sisters, like blowing candles and unpacking our presents at our birthdays, buying whatever he wanted, but we had to earn the money if we wanted something. Even cancelling plans like my college graduation trip because he wanted to stay. He also was never taught any chores and threw a tantrum when he was asked simple things like cleaning dishes. The argument was always, you must understand, he has autism. So I was so happy to move out and live with my partner. At my wedding, my mum took me to the side and said how happy she was that my brother will live with me and my husband. I don't have to say that I was shocked. No one ever told me or my husband about this plan. I asked what she was talking about, and her answer was, "Isn't that obvious? He likes you the most, and you have the money." I was furious. It was my wedding, and she was trying to force me and my husband to take care of the brat that she created. I said that I won't let my brother ruin our lives, and she can forget about this nonsense. Now she and part of my family are calling me a selfish jerk, but on the other side, my husband and friends are on my side. Am I the jerk? Look, it's clear you've been dealt a tough hand with your family dynamics, and your feelings are valid. But let's get one thing straight, like calling your brother a brat isn't fair to him. He's a product of your mother's doing, not his own choices. However, your mum springing this on you at your wedding of all places? That's a whole new level of inconsiderate. It's your life, your marriage, and you have every right to set boundaries that protect your peace and happiness. It's not about being selfish, it's about self-preservation. Your mum needs to understand that her expectations are not only unrealistic, but also unfair. You're not responsible for the situation she created. Stand your ground, but maybe try to find a bit of compassion for your brother. He's caught in the middle of this too. Let me know in the comments section if you guys think this situation is a lost cause. Okay, we've got to move on to the next post. My baby sister just had a baby and our mum came to help. My sister and her husband live in a tiny apartment with no room for my mum. I agreed to let her stay with me since I live only 8 blocks away. It's walkable. My plan was to Uber her over in the morning and pick her up after work. I only eat one meal a day during the week, supper. I have coffee for breakfast and some fruit for lunch. On Saturday, I treat myself to a good breakfast, and on Sundays, I take the woman I'm dating for brunch. My mother decided that this was unacceptable. She got up early and went through my fridge and freezer to make me breakfast. I told her that I appreciate it, but that I do not usually eat breakfast. She said that was stupid. I very clearly communicated to her that she was welcome to eat anything in my home, but to please not make me breakfast, as it was a waste. She made breakfast the following day. I walked out without eating it. I figured worst case scenario I could eat it for supper. She threw it out since I didn't eat it. I told her once more to please not waste my food. She made breakfast for me the next day. I asked her if she was developing dementia. She is wasting my food for no good reason. I'm not poor or anything, but wasting food is a pet peeve of mine. She said I was being ungrateful for her help, and she was doing it to be nice since I was letting her stay with me. I explained to her again that I did not need, want, require, or desire breakfast during the week. She said she understood. She made me breakfast the next day. I had had enough. I took her luggage with me when I dropped her off at my sister's home. I told my doorman that my guest was no longer welcome. I got so many messages from her and my sister all day long. Even my dad called me to ask me to change my mind. I said no. He had to drive up and rent an Airbnb close to my sister because my mum was too scared to stay by herself. He's retired, so he didn't miss work or anything. My sister came over alone to talk to me. She said I was being a complete butt and that I could afford the food my mum was wasting. I said I could, but that I didn't want to. She literally used up 2 months' worth of my food. She made up huge breakfasts that I didn't even eat. I keep all my bacon in individual servings. She thawed out 3 for every breakfast, 1 for her and 2 for me, and I ate 0. My father has asked me to let her back in. I said I would, under the condition that she understands that my food is completely off limits to her. She can pay for her own food. I said I would make room in the fridge and freezer for her. She said I was being ridiculous and petty. So my dad is staying neutral, but my mom and sister think I'm a jackass. My girlfriend thinks the whole thing is hilarious and refuses to get involved. Look, setting boundaries in your own home is crucial, and it sounds like you made your stance clear from the get-go. Your mum, bless her heart, tried to show love in her own way, but completely steamrolled your boundaries in the process. It's not about the food or the money, it's about respect. You communicated repeatedly a simple request that was ignored. Yes, kicking her out might seem harsh to some, but at what point do you draw the line? Your home, your rules. It's that simple, and honestly, if someone can't respect a simple request, then they're showing a lack of respect for you as a person. Your sister and mum calling you names? Not cool. They need to understand that respect goes both ways. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. All right, I'm sick of hearing my own voice, so let's get into our next post. I, 17 years old, live with my 3 brothers, 15 years old, 13 years old, 10 years old, and my mother, 40 years old. We're not very well off. I pay almost half the rent. I pay for groceries more often than not. And I juggle having a job, going to school, and raising these 3 kids, one of whom is disabled. I say raising because my mother, between having 2 jobs and basically never being home, doesn't contribute. She's gone by 8 a.m. and usually not back before 10 or 11 p.m. In the past year, she's been home even less, getting home later and later. I'm pretty sure she goes out drinking. The fight went like this. My mother came home last night a bit before 9 p.m. for once, instead of 11 or later as she's been doing. The 15-year-old came out of his room to say hi, and the 13-year-old was already on the couch reading something for school. So she hugged both of them and said hi, and said she'd stopped by the gas station to buy us all something, and gave us all a candy bar, which was cool of her. Then she asked where the 10-year-old was, because she wanted to say hi to him. Now, I've practically raised these kids on my own for years now, and I do my best. On the very rare occasion my mum comes home early, she usually just goes to bed. I have the 10-year-old go to bed at 8 p.m, which I don't think is unreasonable, and I let the other 2 stay up until 10 p.m, because they're older. We all eat dinner at 6, get home from school around 4, and have a pretty clean routine all together. Now, my mother was asking where he was, so I told her he was asleep. She asked why, so I told her it's past his bedtime. She told me he didn't have to go to bed that early. I told her he did. She told me no, he didn't. She'd said we could all stay up until 10. I said that doesn't work, and she told me she's the parent and it does work. And then she said it's not my place to micromanage the other 3. She said her kids, her house, her rules. And then she exploded, that I could stop being such a control freak because it wasn't my place to do that, or to have signed the 13-year-old up for soccer, or to have repainted the fence, or to have taken the 10-year-old to the doctor some weeks ago, or any of the things I've been doing without asking her. I told her it's also my house, I pay a lot of rent, and they're basically my kids because she's never around, so it's more my house, my rules, if we want to play that game. I told her she wouldn't know what works for the 10-year-old because she's too busy to know him. I told her I might ask for her input if she was ever around, but she never is, so I don't care how she thinks I should raise these kids, and she doesn't get to have a say in it. Not anymore. She broke down crying, called me ungrateful for all that she does, said she doesn't know where she went wrong, and left the room. She either went to her room or she left the house. I don't know, and I don't care. She's an adult, it's her life. The 13-year-old said I'm a jerk for making her cry, and the 15-year-old left the room a minute later saying he was going to bed. So, Reddit, am I the jerk for telling my mother off? To add, this post received a lot of attention. Some clarifying points. 1, I don't hate her. Some of you are being overly dramatic. 2, I go to school from 8 to 10, work from 10 to 4, pick my brothers up, and maybe work a night shift if you want my schedule. If you want more details, look through my comments. 3, we're not struggling financially, but we really, really would be if I didn't contribute. 4, I'm not saying she doesn't contribute at all, I'm saying she doesn't contribute to raising her kids. 5, I plan to eventually take custody. 6, special shout out to the person who thinks I should be beaten with a chair. That was a good laugh. To add again, this really received a lot of attention. The bedtime debate of all things isn't really what I'd thought I'd ever end up being internet famous for. LOL. Thank you all for your kind words. Look, the situation you're in is tough, no doubt about it. You're 17, juggling school, work, and raising your siblings. That's more than most adults can handle. But here's the thing. Your mum, despite her flaws and absences, is still your mum. It sounds like she's trying, in her own way, even if it's not enough, exploding at her, telling her she doesn't get a say in her own kids' lives. That's harsh. Yes, you're stepping up big time, and that's commendable. But communication is key here, not confrontation. You're all under a lot of stress, and it's clear there's a lot of hurt on both sides. It might feel like it's you against the world, but tearing down your mom won't build you or your brothers up. It's a tough pill to swallow, but finding a way to work together, even when it's hard, is what's best for those kids. And please let me know if you think I'm misunderstanding anything about the situation. We are all just human. And now, before I talk your ear off even more, let's move on to the next post. Every April, my wife's family holds a family reunion. They don't celebrate holidays together often, so they go all out for these, renting a hall, catering, the works. The only weird event at these reunions is a clothing swap between the women of the family. For whatever reason, when my wife and her sisters all had daughters close in age, they decided a long time ago that this was the best way to do family hand-me-downs. All the women in my wife's family ended up being very short, 4, 10, -5, 1. So they all wear rare but similar sizes, so it's always worked out. With a 70/30th gender split and the only men in the family being myself, my brother-in-law, and my sons from a previous relationship, this swap meet is the main event. They make it a whole show about it. It's incredibly boring from the outside, so my boys and I always head out early if we go at all. This would be a non-issue if it weren't for my daughter Kate. She's my wife and ours baby. Kate took after my side of the family. We're a taller family, or at least not Keebler elves, so by the time she was 11, she started coming back with nothing from those parties. The first time, I assumed that she was just picky until I realised that she was starting to be bigger than her older sisters and cousins and had outgrown any size they would wear. My wife thought she needed to realise that not everything was for everyone and to just have fun being there. Last year, she started having body image issues, thinking she was fat and needed to go on a diet. And now I'm thinking having this event is feeding it. This year is going to be a massive deal as my mother-in-law is going into a nursing home and is downsizing. She was so into fashion that she has an entire storage unit full. So this is going to be a ton of stuff. I'm starting to think the reunion shouldn't involve a clothing swap at all, and all of that should be done privately at another time. Family shouldn't be about a fashion show. My wife thinks that's ridiculous, and Kate is just having typical teenage problems that will go away on their own, but if she's so bothered she can just not go or stay with the boys. I don't think that's right. This is mainly a girls' reunion. It's not like there's anything else for an alternative for her to share in, because they don't really get rid of accessories or anything, it's just clothes. This event is starting to get mean and exclusionary, and it needs to end. I'm trying my best to make them see sense, and I'm getting nothing but arguments. Am I really in the wrong here? Look, the heart of the issue here isn't about clothes. It's about your daughter feeling included and valued in her family. Ignoring her feelings because it's tradition is a fast track to her feeling alienated. Yes, traditions are important, but when they start to hurt someone, especially a young girl already struggling with body image, it's time to reassess. Saying she's having typical teenage problems is dismissive and unhelpful. This isn't about clothes. It's about making sure your daughter doesn't feel like an outsider in her own family. It's not ridiculous to suggest changing or adapting the tradition. It's called being considerate. Your wife and her family need a serious reality check on priorities. Family should be about support and inclusion, not exclusion and insensitivity. Before we move on, let me know if you think I missed anything in the comment section below, but we must continue on, so here's the next post. So I, female 22, am dating Greg, 25M. His mum is Lisa, 70F. Last month we attended a funeral for a family member of Greg and Lisa. After the service, everyone was mingling in the fellowship hall and eating, and Lisa stepped out for a smoke break. I happened to see her, through one of the open church windows, get into the back seat of the car while lighting her cigarette, and then she started rummaging in the large bag that I brought along. I didn't think anything of it, as I had brought the bag so I could carry any extra things anybody needed, including lighters, for instance, so I thought that's what she was fishing for. I went back to socialising and supporting Greg. Something that is relevant, but that I forgot at the time, is that I had left my wallet in that bag. Anyway, I stopped by the gas station 2 days later for some gas and realised I was missing my card from my wallet. I used Apple Pay so I could get my gas, went home and started searching. I also called Greg, who was at his parents' home, and asked if he could search there and see if I misplaced it somehow. I only take it out of my wallet if I'm using it and then put it right back in, but I thought that maybe I was shuffling things in my wallet, put it down and forgot about it. I didn't find my card, Greg didn't find my card, and I decided to give it one more day before I cancelled it, because maybe it would just pop up. I had also not noticed any transactions through my bank app that weren't from me. The next day, Greg texted me saying he found my card on top of the washer. He said he doesn't know how he missed it, but it was there waiting when he went to do some laundry. I told him I'd get it from him in a couple days when he came back to our apartment. The next day was payday. I checked my account to see what I made, and I noticed directly below the direct deposit was a withdrawal for an Amazon order. I haven't placed an order for anything from Amazon in weeks, and checking on my account confirmed that. I asked Greg if he used my card to make a purchase, and he said no, of course not. He would never do so without asking. I cancelled the card and reported potential fraud, and then it was discovered that Lisa has used my card for the purchase because she couldn't find hers. She said she would pay me back soon and that she really needed it. I don't know what she bought, but I don't care considering she stole my card. She also apparently has a history with gambling and stealing. She has taken money from Greg before, and a driving factor of her divorce with Greg's father was that she stole most of his savings while they were separated. He has never recovered the money, but it was almost $500,000. I decided I would involve the cops, and now Lisa is furious and saying I'm being a brat and a lot of other insults, and that I could have just waited for her to pay me back, even though she also has a reputation of not paying people. To add no, Lisa didn't have Greg at 45. She and her now ex-husband adopted him as an infant. Almost forgot, no, Greg was not in on it. Yes, he's on my side. Also, I didn't come here for financial advice, so please stop giving it. I do not care what your opinion advice is regarding my lack of credit history. Oh, honey. Let's get one thing straight. You're not being a brat for wanting to involve the cops. Lisa, at 70, should know better than to sneak around and steal your card. It's not a minor oopsie, it's a crime, especially given her history with gambling and theft. It's concerning that she thought it was okay to just borrow your card without permission. And her reaction, calling you names for standing up for yourself, that's manipulation 101. You did the right thing by protecting yourself and your finances. Don't let her or anyone else guilt you into thinking you overreacted. Theft is theft, no matter who does it. Stay firm on this. If you're enjoying this video, you should subscribe. I post real stories from real people every day. None of that AI garabga. Alright, now for the next post. I put gold in quotation marks because I think it's more bronze orange, but maybe I'm splitting hairs and am the antagonist. Some context. My best friend Dan got married to Lauren yesterday. Dan and I have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just missed my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I'll just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to die on. The dress code was warm tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy, warm colours. I picked out a bronze orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great. However, at the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just King trashy." I was so shocked in the moment I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan, and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mum has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter and I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress, saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. Am I the antagonist? Now for an update. Wow, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly, I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress, but in a dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am. and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. I do want to start this update by thanking my husband who suggested I post here and has been having a ball reading your comments since posting and even posting a photo of us this morning with a caption along the lines of, "My gold prize of a wife. I am winning in life thanks to you." Turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was bullsh-t, but it wasn't until his mom calling him that confirmed it. Turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside and, ironically, was actually wearing a yellow gold dress and tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologised for what happened, apparently. This is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said, "Lauren just hates me," turns out it's 100% true. Apparently she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off, because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness, and that I will always be here to support him, and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called, they were still at home, so who knows. I've blocked Lauren and her mum and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again, everyone, for your comments and judgment. And oh, honey, let's get one thing straight. You did nothing wrong by wearing that dress. The issue here isn't about the colour of your dress. It's about Lauren's insecurity and her inability to handle her jealousy in a mature way. It's clear as day that she's been looking for an excuse to lash out at you, and this was her golden opportunity, no pun intended. The fact that another guest wore a similar style in a different colour without issue just proves that Lauren's problem is with you, not the dress. It's sad, really, that she's letting her insecurities poison what should be a happy occasion. And Dan, well, he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, but he needs to stand up for what's right instead of letting Lauren's irrational demands dictate his relationships. You've been more than accommodating, and it's high time Lauren deals with her issues instead of projecting them onto you. Blocking Lauren and her mum was the right move. Focus on your happiness and let Dan figure his own mess out. Let me know what you all thought in the comments section. Now, let's get into our next post.